Castlevania Bloodlines on Sega Genesis. Believe it or not, this was the first Castlevania game I ever played. I was a Sega kid growing up, so I hadn't even heard of this series before Bloodlines. Since then, I've played the original, Simon's Quest, Dracula's Curse, Super Castlevania 4, Castlevania 64, and Symphony of the Night. It's an awesome franchise, though Bloodlines was my first taste. Shrink-wrapped in nostalgia, I gladly dedicate this review to my good buddy Jayson Lamp, who requested this monster way back in February. Your patience has not gone unnoticed. Jay, this bud's for you. Fans of this long-running franchise had already seen plenty of innovations prior to this. With Simon's Quest, Konami decided to focus on exploration and puzzle solving instead of high-stakes action. Wah wah. In Dracula's Curse, it was a return to form, though players were given 4 characters and alternate routes, but yeah, why am I showing you the cartridge rather than gameplay? Because I couldn't get this fucker to work. Terrific. Super Castlevania 4 on Super Nintendo gave players greater control over their cursed hero, allowing him to whip in 8 directions with the secondary weapon being assigned its very own button. In previous entries, you had to press up while hitting the attack button. No longer. In addition, many stages add a whole new dimension of challenge using sprite scaling and rotation effects, otherwise known as Mode 7, all while looking sexy as fuck in the process. The graphics are dazzling to say the least. Again, I didn't know any of this going into Bloodlines back in '99. Yes, it came out in '94, but I didn't snag it until much later. Since then, the game has become a collector's item, for it's the only Castlevania game on Genesis, and it remains a console exclusive to this day outside of emulation. Complete copies have sold for as much as $100. It boggles the mind. Because of this, the gameplay scene here was captured using my Act Games Genesis Portable. Now, don't worry, I'm not basing my review on this poor emulator. No, I'm reviewing Vampire Killer, the Japanese version. This is a reproduction cart, courtesy of 8-Bit Evolution. The story takes place in 1917. Elizabeth Bartley has summoned malevolent forces from all over Europe in order to resurrect Dracula. Johnny Morris, descendant of Quincy Morris from Bram Stoker's novel, as well as the Belmont clan from previous entries, has sworn to fight these vile creatures of the night and send Dracula back to his grave. Childhood friend Eric Lacarde joins the fight in order to avenge his true love that fell victim to Elizabeth's bloodlust. The cutscene is simple but effective. I especially love the visual with Elizabeth walking amongst the flames peering out a window. During this sequence, you'll notice the one major cosmetic change between versions. In the North American release, Eric looks a bit more masculine when compared to his Japanese counterpart. Eric had an effeminate quality, yes, though I don't see why it needed to be changed. Come to think of it, this makes me wish Eric had been a woman instead. It would have provided contrast to Johnny's iron jaw manhood while offering a kick-ass warrior woman for female players to identify with. At least you'd have the option. Regardless, I like Johnny and Eric equally, for they both bring something different to the table. John's main weapon is the whip, which is classic. Eric uses a spear to great effect. Like previous games, you'll collect power-ups that extend their range while making them more powerful. The secondary weapons are what you'd expect, like axes and holy water, but the cross has been replaced with a boomerang. It works well enough, though it doesn't look anywhere near as cool. On that note, when you max out your main weapon, your hero of choice receives a special attack that will devastate the competition. John has an orb, kind of bland, though it does serious damage. For whatever reason, it reminds me of the ball from Phantasm. Eric's special attack is the best. This attack is so fucking cool, it actually makes the game lag. Yeah, it's not often I see the Genesis breathe heavy. When you power up fully, Johnny's whip is fucking electrified, almost like Whiplash from Iron Man 2. Eric's spear, you ask? It's on fire, literally. Sadly, the moment either one is hit, it's business as usual. Bummer. As for the secondary weapons, they get their own button, just like Castlevania 4. In Bloodlines, it's the C button. If you press up and C, you get a variant of the same attack that's pretty bitchin'. It takes more crystals than usual, but it's worth the investment. Yeah, they're crystals this time, not hearts. One other thing I should mention is that John and Eric make their way through the same 6 stages. Castlevania, Dracula's Curse, and Super Castlevania 4 all took place in Dracula's castle. With Bloodlines, that's just the first stage. You'll march through Greece, Italy, Germany, as well as France. You'll kill zombies, bone-tossing skeletons, ball and chain-wielding skeletons, creatures from the Black Lagoon, minotaur monsters, harpies, Medusa heads, mummies, and so much more. Every stage has a series of mini-bosses throughout, a lot of them in fact, and a final boss. Johnny and Eric don't take the same routes though, not entirely. John uses the whip to swing across gaps, Eric has the spear to pole vault to higher platforms. I didn't know this in the beginning. Yeah, when I made it to Athens with Johnny, I came across a section where I had to swing. Easy, right? What about Eric? I reached the same section and it's like, what the fuck am I doing wrong? How am I supposed to get across with Eric? I figured out the pole vault, but I can only go straight up. Then it hit me. The section right before this had a bunch of levels I couldn't reach with John. I was stuck at that crevice for what felt like hours, jumping to my death like a goddamn lemming. Then, yeah, there are days I question my intelligence. This is where most of the challenge stems from. Jumping. The enemies aren't all that difficult. Not to say some of them didn't have me hurling profanities like baked potatoes at a cookout. The maze skeletons aren't so bad until I reached this one part. Timing your jumps here is punishing enough without these bastards pissing on your back. If this were like any other game where you freeze for a brief moment after taking damage, I'd be fine. In Bloodlines, you hop back, typically falling to your death. That's consistent with the series, so it's really no surprise. I'll be fair, the jumps here aren't as excruciating as the older games, but for fuck's sake, this is where much of my time was spent, trying to get past these fucking gears. Once I did, I could have shit kittens with how much joy filled my heart. Then I went to France and completely lost my shit as well as my mind. You have these giant rosebuds that sprinkle evil fairy dust, reversing your controls. They're so fucking annoying, though they can't touch these assholes. Yeah, the headhunter bat or skeleton monkeys, whatever you want to call them. I call them assholes. I'm sure there's a pattern to this, but I'm so anxious whenever I make it this far that my patience is almost drained. After Germany, it's a wonder I have any left. Seriously, I fucking hate these things. There are some unique stage hazards, the Leaning Tower of Pisa tilting back and forth as the screen forces you upward, not to mention the Medusa heads. The Palace of Versailles has a bit where the screen is divided up into 4 sections like a cylindrical puzzle box, followed by a crazy upside-down room. The latter two force you to breathe deep and take it slow, but that's really hard for me to accept. I've already grown accustomed to earlier entries where I have a time limit that it's almost impossible for me to take it slow. It's like my brain has been conditioned to believe that time is just as deadly as the monsters I face. It feels like a thinly veiled metaphor for life. Wow, that's deep. Anyway, Bloodlines doesn't have a time limit, so you need to crack whatever programming these games have installed in your subconscious and kick fucking ass. The graphics are some of the best I've seen on Genesis. The Leaning Tower of Pisa may be the most impressive stage of them all. Sprite rotation and parallax scrolling make this a visual feast. I especially love this section. It's supposed to look as if we're hopping platforms and circling Pisa with the camera tracking us as we ascend. Now that's a difficult illusion to achieve in this two-dimensional plane, yet Bloodlines pulls it off with ease. That's some damn fine work. As much as I dread the munitions factory, it does look pretty sweet. All the gears, these obnoxious pistons and rotating blades, there's a lot of life in these environments. Then you have those slick visuals in Greece with the reflections on the ocean surface and this whack-ass shit right here. It's a mindfuck of Argento proportions, but it's wicked awesome. Music and sound effects are truly exceptional. Every track is bursting with energy and classic horror camp. Fans may call it a traditional Castlevania score, and personally, I'd take that as a compliment. The music would work just as well in Super Castlevania 4, or even the original. In conclusion, Castlevania Bloodlines is a damn fine game. It's good, old-fashioned side-scrolling monster mashing that challenges your mind as well as your reflexes. Isn't that what we've come to expect from these games? If we wanted a walk in the park, we'd be outside catching Pokemon. Next time on Mastercast TV. Ha, I wish.